and welcome to this recording of AVL Live. This is a brand new series where we look at ways for you to use moving images and sound in new and more immersive way. And to help me explore how to engage your audience online better and faster, I've got today my guest, Tiana Wilson-Buys. Tiana, welcome to AVL Live.
Thank you so much for having me, Pascal. Thank you.
Now, I was looking back at the catalog of videos, and you may not remember because I was quite a few years ago, but you helped me launch my very first video series, Content Marketing Studio, many years ago.
Oh, wow. Yes, I'm forgotten about that already. It is quite some time ago, but yeah, that was a lovely series, actually.
So I'm actually launching season 2, but I'm also doing one in parallel, as you heard a moment ago, called AVL Live, which is all about essentially different ways in which we can build our brand, nurture an audience loyalty, and of course, drive business forward. So for those of you who are not met Tiana Wilson-Buys just yet, let me remind you that she's the founder of Talking Business. She's known as the Get Stuff Done manager and coach, productivity expert, and author. She's also the co-owner of several businesses. I'm not sure how you find the time, honestly, Tiana, including 3D, 2D events and Historiet. And today, Tiana has agreed to talk to me about using live video to build a brand and to build an audience. So before we get into the details, can we go back to when did you have your first go at a live video? Do you remember?
I do, actually. And you may remember, this is, again, going back several years, but there used to be a thing called Periscope, which was linked to Twitter, I think it was. That's quite a few years ago. And Periscope was just a live streaming platform. And at the time, I thought, let me give it a go. And I did, specifically for Talking Business. And I had a hashtag called Timescope, actually. And it was all about...
Yes,
do you remember those? Yeah. It was all about productivity tips and time management tips and whatever. And I used to do those every week, I think. And I did that for quite some time. So that was my first introduction into live video. And I actually loved the Periscopes. It was a lot of fun.
And I remember now you mentioned it, you were part of that cohort of early kind of testers, adopters, whatever term you want to do. We were all doing it. And I think we probably learned some important lesson we're using now that the platforms and the systems have matured. But I remember you also kind of repurposed them, didn't you? So you went live and then they were repurposed as video for your blog.
Exactly, which is one of the things I love about live is the fact that you can repurpose it. So what I used to do with the Periscopes was to download them and then just top and tail editing, put a nice cover on, and then repurpose on my blog. And I think I also uploaded to my Facebook page, I think. So I would repurpose in that way. And I've also built up quite a library, which I then made available later on, much later. I made it available on a sort of a subscription basis. So somebody could buy a subscription and get that whole library of videos that I've built up. So actually those Periscopes worked very well over the long term because I used it in the short term live and then medium term where I would upload it somewhere else and then long term as a paid sort of subscription service, and that worked quite well.
I mean, it's always good to be able to get more value from the content. Did you get a feeling that you performed better because you had a live audience, hence why there was longevity with your content, would you say?
Yes, I feel that, look, we're all different, but for me personally, if I have a live audience that I'm talking to and getting feedback from, I feel that I perform better. I'm more in the zone. Where when I do a recorded video, I don't quite get that energy level. So for me personally, live works so much better, definitely.
Excellent. So we're going to fast forward to where we are now, and I'll begin with asking you, actually, where are you and how are you doing in these strange times?
Yes, it has been strange times, hasn't it? But it's also been good, for me. I always look at, okay, so this is what life has thrown at us. What can I do with the time? Because clearly we had less meetings, less conferences, less everything over the last 6 months. So I've decided to use that time and do quite a lot of content creation, including video. So certainly over the summer period with 3D, 2D events, we always have an in-person, very, very big summer market. But of course, this year it couldn't happen. So we had to pivot and create an online version, which then meant that the whole marketing campaign had to be quite a lot different to what it would normally be. So with our online market, we decided to run a very robust online campaign, which included doing lives. And those were fabulous, honestly. So what we've done is I did, I think, 4 per week, mostly on Instagram, some on Facebook. And I would interview one of our artists. Bearing in mind, 3D, 2D has about 150 or so artists exhibiting every summer. So we chose from them several artists doing all kinds of different things, from glass fusion to leather work to metal work. And I would interview them live. And it was fantastic for me. It was fantastic for the artists because they could showcase what they do. And it was also really, really good for the audience because they got to speak to the artist directly. Because this is the other wonderful thing with live is you have your live audience who can ask questions, make comments, all of those things. So the audience would ask questions of me and of the artist, which the engagement was just absolutely amazing. So that's certainly something I've done over the summer period and during the whole lockdown thing. I've done quite a bit besides that, but that was really something fabulous.
Excellent. We're going to go back to all the key elements you mentioned, but yes, I know that as a content creator, I mean, you write, for the web, you
Yes.
create obviously videos as in pre-record, and you also do live videos. So something tells me that we're going to be talking about systems very soon. But can we go back to 3D, 2D events? Can you take us back to how it all began? Because this is a new venture for you, a newer venture compared to talking business.
Oh, yes. So 3D, 2D events has been going for over 30 years. It's a well-established company that provides events for artists and makers and designers. So at our events, only artists who actually make that stuff can sell it. So it's always the actual maker that is doing the selling as well. And at sort of towards the end of last year, the founder of 3D 2D has decided to retire, sadly. And we just felt we couldn't let this spectacular company die because so many artists are reliant on 3D 2D. And yes, you know me, if there's another business opportunity, of course I'm going to go for it. So along with 3 other people, I bought 3D 2D, but of course then COVID happened this year, which was going to be our first year, and 3D 2D always has 5 live events every year, but of course all 5 have been cancelled due to COVID. So yes, it's a new venture in a new field that I haven't worked in before, and then, of course, with COVID, things were very, very different. So we've had to not only learn how to run the company, but also implement new systems and processes. And then, of course, deal with COVID and have to pivot all the time. So it's been a very, very steep learning curve for me. But
Oh,
hey,
oh yeah, completely. So you went from what would have been a a physical event, which probably
mhm,
was important for both the attendees as well as the
yes,
the kind of exhibitors and so on, to online.
yeah,
So now you had to make sure that the exhibitors were happy with that, and so would those who perhaps took pleasure in traveling to the
yes.
venue. Before we move on to live, just quickly, how did you tackle the communication and the marketing by extension?
What we did with communication, thankfully, our exhibitors um, are extremely loyal, and they have stood by us throughout. So, and we have been very clear and upfront through communication with them. So we sent out communiques via email, and made sure that we kept them up to date. And we used social to stay in touch with the buyers, the people who usually attend our events. So if it wasn't for social, there's no way that we would have been able to communicate
Mm.
with our buyers. So thankfully we had that, because there's no other way, so it has been good. Just I think through all of this, all businesses must know now that communication is key. Because we can't face to face eyeball each other, we have to find other ways to communicate. It's really important.
You mentioned that you've gone live for 3D, 2D events on Instagram. I mean, bear in mind that previously you'd not used Instagram.
No.
Why made you choose Instagram more than any other platforms? I wonder.
Yes, that's a very good question. Um, with 3D 2D, when we took over, it had a Facebook page, an Instagram account, and a Twitter account. So it already had those platforms. Personally, I've not been an Instagram user. Um, but when we looked at the lives and how easy it is to do a live with a guest, Instagram was oh so much easier than Facebook. And it could just be me. I'm not much of a techie kind of person. Um, but the few Facebook lives I did with 3D, 2D, it was quite difficult to get the guest on, and it was just complicated. Where with Instagram, it was really, really simple. You go live, your guest comes in, requests to come in, they live, and you can chat. So that's why I sort of moved more towards Instagram. It's easy. That's it.
So for people who have not had the pleasure of being, literally behind the curtain, to kind
Mhm.
of be the producer, you have an Instagram account.
Mhm.
Do you use mobile phones primarily for the
Yes.
Instagram live? Do you?
Yes, mobile phone on a tripod, because your hand gets a bit shaky. So just put it on a tripod. Um, and it's so simple, because I think Instagram was really built to make it really, really easy. So it's literally hitting a button and you're live. There's no clever stuff that you need. You don't need all kinds of technology and gadgets and things. It's a mobile phone and a tripod. That's
Mm.
it. So if you're just starting out, honestly, you can't go wrong than using
And
Instagram.
interestingly, I'm keeping obviously myself informed what's happening live. Occasionally, I will do some coaching sessions on how to design and launch your live show.
Mm.
And I know that at this moment in time, there is no easy plug-in with third-party software like all the others for
No.
Instagram Live. But I wonder whether actually to its benefit, which is therefore it's always simple because you
Yes.
can't keep adding layers of complexity.
Exactly. And yes, you're quite right. You can't, I know some people do sort of multi-stream types of things. You can't do that with Instagram. But you can do your live, save it to your IGTV, and then you can download it to your camera roll, and then repurpose it. So there are other ways to do it.
Ah.
It's just, yes, you cannot live stream with, say, Facebook or something else at the same time, but you can download it and repurpose. So it's
And
fine for me.
how do you get a guest on the call as such? I mean, I think people are familiar with Zoom probably and Teams and a few others that they had no choice. But with Instagram Live, if I were to be a guest, what steps happens before we go live and maybe after?
This is the other thing that I love about Instagram. It's really so simple from the guest perspective as well. all they need to do is follow you on Instagram.
Okay.
And when you go live, right at the top of their screen, there'll be a little red circle around your profile picture and it says live. All they need to do is hit that. They'll then come in as a viewer of your live. And then at the bottom of their screen, a little thing pops up to say, would you like to join the live? And they just hit yes. And then you as the host just accepts them and that's it. There's no other strange things that you have to do. It's really, really simple. But of course, you know me, I'm always overly prepared. So before I interview a guest, I will always send them a little guide on this is how you guest on a Instagram live, just with a little step-by-step. And it's things like use a tripod, make sure that you have good Wi-Fi. You know, it's those typical things that if somebody hasn't done it before, they may not know. So I think it's important just to remind people of those things.
And I think you're reminding us in a way, even though technology is making things so much easier, simpler, and faster, there are some prerequisites or some givens around event management. So if this was to be a physical event where someone actually has to travel to a radio station to be interviewed, they would be sent a map of the step. They'd be sent details of the person they can contact. There's a problem. There would be a whole kind of pre-event communication. And I think sometimes we need to be careful not to cut too many corners just because of the ease of use and access to technology.
You're absolutely right. For me, I treat it like any other meeting or event. I will always send my guest a little thing of this is how you do it. This is what you'll need. And then, of course, my other rule is if I'm going to interview somebody live, I like to send them my questions beforehand. Just so that they can think about it. Because if somebody hasn't done a lot of interviewing before or a lot of guesting before, they may not know how to answer questions. So if you can at least send them the questions in advance, they can think about it. There's nothing so bad as being a guest and somebody asks you a question that you can't answer. Of course, I mean, you and I, we've done this a million times. So you know, we can do this. But if somebody is brand new at being a guest, I think it'd be rude not to send them the questions in advance.
No, I would agree. I mean, I make the distinction between regulars, forgive me, those who are now can build on their experience, and someone will say, well, this is the first time. So if this is the first time, I will actually call them a few days before and we chat about it and ask them the questions. I'll say, no, there will be 3 key segments, so they can break it up and say, so don't think about the episode as a whole, think of, segment 1, 2, 3. So it's almost like much easier to get your head around. And we talk about if they need, to have headsets or some people, you're right, they've been working in your case, it would be workshops and shops and offices. And what is obviously suitable for a team meeting may not be so for a live session with potential customers. So we can also give advice on how to position the mobile phones or how to clear the clutter behind them and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yes. I always say, remember this is video. Make sure that you and your background sort of looks the way you want it to. And particularly now that so many people work from home, you get cats walking across and you get babies in the background and you get people's laundry hanging up. So, I just want to make people aware.
Yeah, I mean,
those things.
I'm going to be unkind, but only because we can laugh about those things. But when you watch, the news in particular, and now people are being interviewed from their home environment, all I can say to you, Tiana, is that in the UK, people clearly are very proud of their ceiling, because I've seen so many ceilings, and these are people, frankly, Tiana, that should know better. They have media people around them and brand people, but it's kind of incredible how they are positioning their laptop or mobile phones. I say, well, very nice ceiling, but I'd like to see more of you if possible.
I know. Often you see the forehead or you just see the nostrils or, I know we can laugh about it anyway.
And it's, in jest because of where we live. But ultimately, the advice that, would give is imagine that someone just, met you across a meeting desk. So it's that level. They could take a shot and say that's what it looks like if I look at you across a desk. So when you went live with the, 3D, 2D events, Did you plan in advance your guest, or did it kind of grow more naturally?
No, you know me, I plan everything to death. So even before the event launched, I chose all the exhibitors that I want to interview. I spoke to all of them on the phone, and I said, this is what I want to do. This is how it will all work. Will you be okay with that? And sort of just, as you said, just talk them through it. And then book them all in for specific dates and times, which of course meant that we could promo that particular guest. So I don't know, a day or two before the live, we'll just have a graphic going out to say, hey, I'm going to be talking to X, Y, and Z. Which also, it's good for engagement. It's good for more people turning up on the live. And the other thing is, often people would ask questions then in that promo, and say, hey, oh yes, I want to ask this person this and this. So if I can't tune in live, please can you ask? So it creates that kind of thing. So yes, I've planned all of them well in advance, sent out a little guide on how to do it, questions that I may ask. And then the other thing is, the morning of the interview, I'll just give them a quick call and say, are you okay? Is your phone charged? We're ready to rock at 1 o'clock or whatever it is.
That's an interesting question. Are you talking from experience, by any chance?
It's so many times, people would say, okay, we're going to do a live at, I don't know, 1 o'clock on Wednesday, and then the guest doesn't turn up because they forgot. It's just things like that. So I'd rather give them a call and make sure that they'll be there. Hey ho, it's strange things that happen on live.
Absolutely. I love the idea of the pre-event promo, and I'm sure then we'll talk in a moment about post-production and repurposing. When you do the graphics, I'm always curious, what do you use to do the graphics to promote the event?
In most cases, I just use Canva because it's easy. Mostly it's free. And I always have a template that I use so that it all is on brand and it looks the same. So I just use Canva, and it's really simple.
I mean, there's plenty of other options out there, but I have to say Canva keeps improving and adding to their services. I mean, recently they launched the video stuff as well. I was caught short a bit in short of time, and I really didn't want to make the editing of a video too complicated, so I used Canva instead. And incredibly, you can drop video clips and actually cut them to the right length, save as an MP4, and that took, I would say, it was 3 times faster than I would normally use as an editing software. So in terms of the experience, of going live, there's 3 things happening at the same time for you. There's obviously you, there's your guest, and then there's the chatting and asking questions. How is it on Instagram to manage the chat and the questions appearing?
Okay, so what I did, certainly with the 3D, 2D events, we had a marketing team that helped us with all the graphics and the scheduling and all of that. And one of the marketing team would sit in with me and catch all the questions and write it on a sticky note and then pass it to me. So I had the wonderful experience of just focusing on the guest. I didn't have to worry about the comments and the questions coming up, because she would sit there and sift through it and just give me the questions on a sticky note, which was then real easy. Now, when I do live videos for Historiette, of course, I don't have somebody that's there. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, because you have to listen to your guest and read the question and make a decision whether this question is relevant or not. So it is a little bit tricky, but I would say, if you haven't done it before, just ask a friend to sit in and help with comments and questions.
You and I used to say to people, get together into a little club,
Yeah.
the live video club, where you support each other and take it in turn. Because I think you're right, where possible, you need
Mm.
to have a producer, as we would call
Yeah.
it in my line of work, where someone that takes care of that. We'll
Mm.
come on to Historiet in a minute, but can I ask then about the post production? So
Mhm.
you learned some important lesson from your days with Periscope. So
Mhm.
are there any things you do now to repurpose the content and make it last longer for you?
Yes. So obviously, directly after your live, you just save it to IGTV, so it's there, and people can watch the replay. But we are planning on doing more of those. So it's the typical meet your maker type interview. And we want to create a whole library on our website where people can go and meet each maker. So all of those lives that I've done before will be used, and then more that I will be doing. So the aim is, and I know this is rather ambitious with the amount of exhibitors we have, but the aim is to have one video for each exhibitor as time goes on, so that we can have this library and buyers can come and say, oh yes, I'm interested in this person, I want to find out more about them, and they can watch the little live. So that is the plan for repurposing those.
Mm. I wonder whether, and I'm asking the question because I'm interested. I'm planning to do my own live sessions in a very near future. Is it possible to repurpose the audio only and almost have some mini podcast? Is it possible to transcribe the audio? I mean, I'm just kind of thinking of options here out loud.
Quite possibly. I haven't tried, but I can't see why not. It's the same as when you do a Zoom interview with somebody. You have a video with audio, and you can pull out the audio to do a podcast. Or, of course, I'm sure technically it should be possible. I just haven't gone down that route
Hmm.
in this particular instance.
Silly question. When you share your screen with a
Mhm.
guest, what does it look like on Instagram? Are you side by side like on Zoom? Are you top of each other? Are you
Um,
square?
yeah, on top of each other.
Hmm.
So the host is on top and the guest is at the bottom. Um, but really, look, I've got an iPhone 6, which is a fairly big screen, and it works quite well. I can see my guest quite clearly. The comments, of course, is at the bottom of the screen, but
Hmm.
there's only about one or two comments, and then it fades away, so it doesn't really obscure your view. So yeah, it works quite well.
So they end up with a portrait video,
Mm,
which is perfect for IGTV, which is essentially
mm,
Instagram's
mm,
extension to having video live, well, on replay at all
mm,
times. So let's talk about Historiet.
mhm.
So to begin with, I love the name, obviously, but can you give us a bit more information about what that is?
So Historiet is my passion project. Look, I've always loved history, and particularly medieval history. So about a year ago or so, I decided that I am going to start creating content around medieval history. And I have a passion for architecture. So bringing all of that together, you have so many medieval buildings still all over the UK. So what I've done is I've created a blog and an Instagram platform and a Facebook page, the usual things. And I started creating content around medieval history. So I'll travel all over the UK when I can, and just, I don't know, go and explore, I suppose, a castle or something, write a blog about it, push out some pictures, do a little bit of video, that kind of thing. So that is where I'm going with Historiet. And I've just recently decided to bring in live video there as
Okay.
well. So what I've done, history geeks, there are many of us all over the world. So I've decided to start the history chat show, which is a live show on Instagram, where I have another history geek as my guest, and we literally just talk about history and things they are currently working on, projects, what they love about history, which time frames in history they enjoy. So those are actually a lot of fun as well. but yes, it's fun, and yes, you can repurpose that. But there's also a lot of marketing value in that, in the sense that, as you may know, on Instagram, it's really quite hard to build a following. So when you have a guest on a live, their following can see you and therefore gets exposed to you, which increases your chances of growing your following, because their followers may become your followers, and vice versa. So being a guest or being a host is really, really good from a marketing perspective. And I suppose it showcases your expertise, so yeah, there's a lot going for live video, so it's a
I
lot of
think
fun.
so, and I mean, I coined the term guest marketing, easily one to pull
Mm,
together back in the early 2010s, because we all began as a collective, in the northeast of England, to explore podcasting and video
mhm,
podcasting and kind of things. I think you're right. Whether you're the host or you're the guest, you get that benefit.
mm,
And for me, you're helping me kind of remind our audience that I've heard the argument that the number one reason to go live is to play to the algorithm that
mhm,
obviously are
mhm.
part and parcel
Yeah.
of visibility. And I think that it would be very dangerous to only think of that as your number one reason, because
Mm,
what I will say and what I sense from what you're saying is that you, as a marketer and content creator, will feel recharged by
mm,
being in conversation mode, but also the numbers don't lie in terms of the reach and
mm,
actually how you can build your brand by being in conversation as opposed to being on your own to number
mm,
one, or doing
mm.
it just for the sake of playing to the algorithm.
Exactly. There's so much more to it. Yes, it's the algorithms, because we have to be honest that all the platforms are pushing video. So we have that. But like I say, there's the audience building facet, there's the expertise showcasing aspect. So there's actually quite a lot about live video that is really, really good. And there's the onward aspect of you can repurpose. So yeah, it's got a lot going for it, definitely.
No, absolutely. So before we have to say goodbye, because unfortunately our
Mhm.
time together is nearly coming to an end, I wanted to ask whether, so you've been using Instagram Live, which is part of the Facebook ecosystem. If you could have a conversation with Mark,
Mm.
Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, we call him by
Yeah.
his first name because
Yes.
thanks to us, he's a billionaire.
Yes.
If you could have a conversation with Mark, is there anything you wish would be better or introduced on Instagram Live to make your life easier?
I think one thing that Instagram lacks a little bit is a better, shall we call it, the search function. So right now, you can't really search for a person or for a live or something. You can only search on a hashtag. So if they can make the search function a little bit better, you can find people more easily. Because now there might be somebody out there doing a live that I would really be interested
Mm.
in, but I don't know about it and I can't search for them. So that is the one thing that I would really, really like to see on Instagram, be it for live or just Instagram as a platform, the search, honestly. Mm.
I've just remembered how you and I started live before
Mhm.
Periscope. Now we're
Oh,
going to
yes.
going back Blab. Do you remember Blab?
That's right. Oh,
That's
my
how we all
word.
started. And
I'd
I'm thinking,
forgotten.
all of us, like Andrew and Pete and
Yes.
Richard, Roger, all of us, we were, and friends from America, because
Yes.
Blab had a great search facility.
That's right. I'd forgotten about Blab. Oh, I used to love that. That was
Yeah.
a lot of fun. Yes.
It was, and you could search, you could in advance the live
Yes.
sessions. I mean, it remains a mystery why it didn't last. I can only
Yeah.
assume that there was just things that didn't work.
Mm,
But you're right, because when I try my darnest, to promote live as
mm,
a form of marketing, as you said, and business development, I try and find ways to let people know about, if you go on Facebook, because some
mm,
people ask me, Tiana, is show me examples of,
mm.
and I try my darnest to find live sessions, and it's very difficult.
It is. It's very, very difficult. So I would tune in to more lives if I could find them. Currently on Instagram, I can see if one of the people I follow is going live. But apart from that, if it's somebody I don't follow, I wouldn't know.
Hmm.
So, yeah. the search function
And I
needs
wonder
work.
whether they need to almost extend the whole IGTV to almost make it like a YouTube channel to a
Yeah.
point, because even that's tricky to use. And if it wasn't for the fact that I follow people, and frankly, if I'm not there present, I don't see the notifications. So,
Yeah.
right. Well, what we'll do is probably with my editor Tim, we'll do an extract of this address to Mark, and then I'll let you know how we get on. So let me conclude our time together with a fun quiz. So to begin with, if you could have a guest, a special guest on your next Instagram live session, who would that be?
Well, if it's for Historiette, there's an author called Dan Snow, who does a lot of history video stuff as well. So yes, I would love to have him as a guest, and I may one day
No.
watch this space.
And if it was for 3D, 2D?
If it was for 3D, 2D, there's one particular lady who is an amazing artist, Louise Pringle. But she's shy. She says she's too shy to do videos. So I'm going to work on her and get the shyness away, because she's an amazing artist. And I just think she'll be so good on live.
Right, something very different now. If you could have your own private concert on IGTV live with an artist or a band, who would be the artist or the band playing for you and your friends?
Ooh, favorite artist or band? There are so many. It depends what mood I'm in, but I do like Michael Bublé. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with him for the moment.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we send a message to Michael as
Yes,
well.
yes.
Of course, you can't have a concert without, obviously the right food and refreshments. So if you could order any food whatsoever for you and your friends for this special event, what food would you order?
Oh my word! Then you see, this means I can go for naughty food. So it's things that I'm not allowed to eat. So it'll be things like cheeseburgers and pizza and things like that. I don't want healthy stuff. Oh no, this is a special event.
Well,
Has
it
to
is a
be
special event. You're absolutely
naughty
right.
stuff, all the naughty stuff, and chocolate.
Now, if you were invited to have your own radio show, what would you talk about and who would you invite to talk to?
That will most definitely be about history. So if I could have a radio show or something, it'll be about history, and I will talk to have guests like archaeologists and conservationists and curators and people like that. Just because I think there's not enough of history out there. So yeah, I would love to do that.
And final question for you. You've won a prize to travel anywhere in the world. Where would you go?
Oh, anywhere in the world. Antarctica. That's it. That's been on my bucket list. I know it's cold down there.
I'm not even sure there's a hotel there.
I doubt it, but there are ships going there. I've checked them out.
You checked, have you?
Oh yes, Hertie Rutten does a cruise down there. It's an explorer cruise. So I would love to go to Antarctica.
Wow, excellent. Well, listen, Tiana, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time with you. I can't thank you enough to help me launch this new series, ARVR Live. For people who would love to see you and your guests live on Instagram, can you remind us again of the handles for 3D, 2D events and Historiette?
Well, for 3D, 2D, you can just go to at West End Fair. And for Historiette, it is Historiette UK. So those are the two that you can find me. And yes, there's always a live happening.
That's excellent. Final words from you of encouragement for people who are considering going live for the first time.
You know what? Just do it, because here's the thing. When it's done, it's done. There's no editing, no faffing about. You just hit the button, you talk to somebody like you do every day, and you hit your button and it's finished. So there's really nothing to worry about. And you know what? If it all goes pear-shaped, you just go delete. It's really, really simple. So there's nothing to be afraid of. Just go out and do it.
Thank you so much. And thank you to you, viewers and listeners, for joining us for the launch episode of ARVR Live. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do send your questions and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, go out there and find new ways to engage your audience. Bye-bye for now.